Next panel is the jack of all trades, the application of Agentic AI across different FinTech verticals. So I'm going to welcome Rebecca, partner at Firemark Ventures. She's going to MC this panel, or not MC, moderate, I should say. So I'm going to welcome her up on the stage, but give them a round of applause. It will come up. It will come up, I promise.
Hello, everyone. Oh. It will automatically. It will turn on? Yeah. Hello, everyone. How is everyone today? Welcome to our panel this morning. This seems like a lifetime ago, but I think this might be my 8th Intersekt now. There's a few faces in the room that I've seen at every Intersekt, and it's good to see the crowd continuing to grow. In traditional FinTech Australia fashion, I'm going to ask my panellists to introduce themselves in 100 words or less and maybe touch on their companies that they work at as well before we get started. Starting off with Gordon at the end.
Hi everyone, I'm Gordon Campbell. I am the Chief Market and Strategy Officer for RDC.ai. We are a FinTech based in North Sydney. I think my title takes up about 100 words just looking at it. We supply AI decisioning into banks focused on solving problems in commercial and business lending.
Hi folks, I'm Warren. I'm COO at FrankieOne, and just a bit on us. So we simplify KYC and KYB onboarding for financial services. We kind of give you access to 350 plus data sources to get you the best pass rates, but also simplify the management of those cases.
Good morning. My name is Jito. I am the co-founder of RedOwl, which is an AI native platform which integrates into the current tech stack of CFO's offices, and we generate real-time governance and control.
Thank you. So we're going to be talking about AI, everyone's favourite topic in 2024 and 2025. So we're going to kick off with just actually getting to know each of these companies and what they're doing using AI. So Warren, can you describe how your organisation is currently applying AI within your vertical?
Yeah, happy to. So right now, about 80% of compliance work has been solved by automation. But the last 20% is manual, and stubbornly so, like a permanent marker that you can't rub out. And that's where Agentic AI has really come in, right? It allows you to pass low risk and automatically solve low risk cases. It allows you to explain and help investigate what's going on, and do it all with, in the case of FrankieOne, human controlled, right? And that's what we're trying to do, give back time. We've seen more than 70 hours of compliance time scanned back every month through the use of Agentic AI in a way that, and you heard me before, having human in loop, allows you to have that kind of bank-grade compliance with the FinTech speed.
Before I ask the other individuals to elaborate on theirs, can you just repeat what you just said and how much time it's saving your individuals?
Well, yeah, so 70 hours or more a month just with one of the agents that we've brought out.
Wow. Gordon, how is your company using AI?
So we're as old as the FinTech conference we're at. So the Intersekt conference 10 years old, and our organisation's 10 years old. And we were doing AI before we called it AI. We called it inference engines. So we were actually using machine learning and developing predictive models that would help make decisions. And so we've come through that time. We've now renamed the company to RDC.ai, and it kind of makes it a little bit more fashionable, I guess. But it is about embedding AI at every level of decision making. So we have what we would call, in a very unsexy way, machine learning. But we're layering agentic capability into 3 pillars in our company. So just speaking about what we do, probably like most of you that are in FinTech, we're using agentic capability to help build our product. So you can do things now with agents in AI-assisted engineering that we didn't think possible probably 12 months ago. So we're actually speeding up our own product development, which I think is great for our customers. Second thing we're doing is the real value that a bank gets out of implementing RDC is about turning it on. And we deal with a lot of bank data, a lot of transaction data. So using agents to help speed up implementation so that there's a faster time to value. And then the third one is really at that consumption layer. How can we provide capabilities to people who want to interact with their data or interact with the decisions that we make on their behalf? How can they interact with those decisions, ask questions, and get insights from that? And so those three different agentic capabilities layered on top of what we might call predictive AI is really what we do with it.
Thank you. And Jito?
RedOwl, that I'm part of, was born out of a debacle. 2 years ago, I was part of a company where the CEO defrauded the company to the tune of $32 million, and the company collapsed. Coming out of that, what gave birth to RedOwl to bring real-time pre-transactional intelligence. Now, the accounting profession, as we all know, was born and has evolved to bring about governance and control. But unfortunately, with all of the SaaS tools and software out there, we still aren't able to achieve what the profession was intended to do. But we see this happening now with AI. AI is able to ingest amount of data that humanly it hasn't been possible for the office of the CFO to call out transactions, call out fraud, call out scam way before it happens, and bring the human in the loop. So that's what RedOwl is doing.
So you're saying your trauma report about your company. Okay. What distinguishes your AI implementation from more generic or horizontal approaches, Jito?
Because we are a solution for the office of the CFO, it's highly specialized, highly contained data sources. So let me just walk you through a simple use case. The first of our Agentic AI is for the accounts payable function. So from the moment an invoice lands in the inbox of a company, we pick up that invoice. We first do a 118-point validation of whether that invoice has come from a supplier that is on our vendor management system, whether it's actually an invoice that matches the purchase order, whether the goods have been delivered, whether the amount and the ABN number and the address and the bank account on the invoice is exactly the one that we have paid before we then go and check the company policy to see, based on what's on the invoice, who needs to look at it, who needs to review it, who needs to sign off. And then we would process the invoice and put it on the payment rail. So highly specialized end-to-end from the time an invoice comes to when the invoice gets paid, and the Agentic platform helps us do that.
Thank you. Warren, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I do actually. I do think it's quite important thinking about how you use AI in verticals than just generally across. And so at FrankieOne, what we've tried to identify is specific use cases across the compliance space to apply this first, whether that's using Agentic AI to be able to review trust documents, extract 46 data points, reduce the amount of time from 30 minutes to 3 minutes, or use Agentic AI in order to auto-resolve low-risk AML hits. I think more than 95% of hits are false positives. And it's really important to start with those use cases and then build up, because I think it actually comes down to adoption. Adoption of AI is something that is incredibly difficult for companies, and not necessarily what is the highest impact, but find those pain points, those niggles, the things that give people the ick, solve them, and when you can get trust, right? I think I use the phrase, human controlled. I think you mentioned human in the loop. Part of the reason that we haven't run all the way to end-to-end workflows, but we plan to, is because you need to gather that trust. And by thinking about specific agent to do specific tasks to solve those pain points, we're seeing traction from our customers and interest to be able to take it to the next level.
Gordon, do you have anything to add on that?
Oh, I was just going to pick up use cases, what people can attach to. So when you're talking to, in our case, a bank or a lender in the business commercial space, if you can articulate, how do I give more time back to a banker to have a conversation with a customer? If I can distill the information, provide that person with the insights or the actions or the recommendations in a consolidated way, that's really where use cases start to become real in the eyes of the customer that we provide services to. So whether it's leads, whether it's early warnings of hardship, whether it's kind of insights of sectors of the portfolio that are doing well or not, I think the idea is you latch onto a business case and, to your point, a problem that actually they can identify with and see value in solving.
Thank you. Every day in my workplace, I know we're talking about agent-to-agent communication and solving complex problems with agents. So I'm going to move on to this a little bit. Warren, are you seeing any early signs of agent-to-agent communication in your workflows? If what are the use cases?
Yeah, so I think that's where we're thinking about stage 2. So we've got these vertical use cases, if you like, and what we're starting to trial is agent-to-agent communication, because as we roll out more of these use cases, it actually becomes difficult. I've got to use this AI for this item, this AI for that item, and that's when we can start thinking about what does let's call it the general AI that sits over the top and uses that to connect into the different agents that we have in order for you to more easily manage that journey and that process.
Thank you. Jito?
Yes, if you can think of agents as the employees you have who are not on your payroll, you will start to get a feel for how you could deploy that specific to your organization. So in our case, I talked about accounts payable, how it's being deployed. That in the context of an office of a CFO is performed today by hundreds of staff in a large enterprise, and we would have different agents looking after different things. So there will be a document agent that will pick up an invoice. Then it will then talk to a vendor agent to check whether the invoice is correct. Then it'll go and talk to the policy agent to see who needs to check and verify. It'll eventually then get onto the payments rails agent to figure out, is it a credit card payment or is it a bank payment? So there's multiple ways you could deploy an agentic platform, but it is happening now, and we see more of that happening.
I've kind of got to stop agreeing with these guys. So yes, so being able to think about what we do, which is look at risk and serviceability of business customers. We don't own the whole customer conversation. We have to play with some other agents to actually answer the question that the bank has: is should I lend to this customer or not? So we envisage and have already built our MCP interface to our engine to allow that to happen, because we can see that coming. We had a vision when we started around driverless credit, it can be done by machines by having a virtual credit committee. Imagine in the bank there's somebody who comes from the risk team and somebody comes from the business team, somebody who's trying to sell a loan. They're all going to come together and have a discussion. They're going to produce a credit memo. It's going to go through some sign-off. Every one of those are specialist agents in the world in the future that we can imagine now that they could be automated. We started 10 years ago. There was no such capability. This is all technology that's arrived really in the last 12 months, and we're saying this is actually probably the most exciting time to see agent to agent. We haven't quite seen it in our domain yet, but it's definitely something that's coming.
So this was a very passionate topic when we spoke on Friday, AI in the future of finance. So Jito, how are you balancing automation with accountability in high-stakes financial decisions?
Automation is here. I think everyone knows about automation, and that's well and truly, I think, proven, and more companies are adopting AI in terms of automation. Where we see the future value of AI is, how does AI become your partner in key decision making? I think Gordon touched on this in terms of in their domain, bringing an agent that acts in the credit space, to policy, to approvals, all of that kind of stuff. We see a lot of that happening. And how do you embed real-time governance and control every step of the way? So it's an exciting future. At the same time, there are issues that one needs to deal with around guardrails and safety.
And just building on that, is your mind at the moment that's a human, but in 5 years' time, would that be an AI agent? Where do you think we're going with that governance?
Sure. Currently, the human is very much in control, but last week, David Gonski, the doyen of Australian corporate boards, was asked this question: where is AI in the boardroom? And his answer was, he doesn't see a world where AI will replace a board of directors. AI is not going to control the board. Why? Because machines, no boards or companies are ever going to trust a machine, but they could augment the intelligence and help with far more better decision making with precision that only AI can bring. So AI has got a clear future, but I don't see a world, particularly when it comes to finance, machines running the show.
I would agree with that. I think they're all about augmenting our capability. Warren, do you have anything to add on that?
I guess one of the things that I ponder is we accept automation, right? We just talked about it here as something that an automation is making decisions, and a big part of all fintechs today, right? And so is AI not an extension of that? Now, the non-deterministic nature is what we have to get our heads around. But I have seen, and we had some government folks talk today, right? A lot of the frameworks are shifting to risk-based controls and decision-making. And so I definitely think that is an easier hurdle to jump or to step over, is saying, hey, in low-risk cases, let's use these models, which are very explainable, in order to make those decisions. And in 5 years' time, we may be looking back and thinking about agentic AI in the same way that perhaps when we first delivered automation, people were very concerned.
Gordon, are you going to agree again?
No, I'm not going. I think, in the world of lending, we're highly regulated. So we have a lot of rules already and governance in place, and that's actually set a really great benchmark for how we should think about model management and governance. And to your point, I think this is an evolution of thinking on top of the way that we've been managing for years. So I think, you still understand how, there's still code underneath, it's not magic, right? But you understand what the risks are, and to your point, I think that's how we would think about it moving forward. Our product, we built explainable as a trait and as a principle from the beginning, because we didn't want anyone to lose their job from using AI. How can you put the explainability into every aspect of what you do? I think explainability, transparency is the trust you were kind of alluding to before. We build trust from that, and then people can evolve. But you just can't jump from maybe producing a credit score and then jump all the way to Agentic. You have to understand the building blocks that go underneath it.
Thank you. This was another very passionate discussion on Friday, and it was about the culture of AI in your workplace. I'm going to start with Gordon, and then I'm going to go to Warren. How would you describe your organisation's AI culture? Is it experimental, cautious, or embedded?
We trade in producing AI-based products, so I would say we're in the experimental area. We have always tried to be at the front, probably ahead of our customers, to test, learn, and understand, so we could talk to them in an informed way about the risks and opportunities that they were walking into. So we definitely start there, and we started there in machine learning. As we've headed into generative AI and agentic capability now, it's actually bringing our own teams along on the journey and letting them have the freedom to test and explore. Really simple example is our head of engineering. He built his first bot to basically understand all his coding standards to make a change to an API and to assess the effect of it, because he knew what change it should look like. And he built it from the ground up and said, I can't tell I didn't write that code. And I go, that's really interesting, because he was another one that said we would not be here for 5 years. So if we're here now, we kind of look forward. I think there's going to be some revolutions still to come that we're going to go, wow, that's game changing.
Has that already transformed your teams?
Yeah, it's transformed our business model significantly. I think we were looking at expanding our teams in our development area for product and expanding our consulting teams to work with customers. Agentic lets us change our business model, change our funding requirement, and then change our go-to-market strategy. So it is making a big difference for us.
Yeah. Warren, I know this is something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah, so actually just on the back of you, Gordon, probably a discussion for another time, but I was at a roundtable just the other week, and we're discussing how the role of engineers is actually going to move from programming to planning, which is going to be, and the structure of Agile may actually shift with the introduction of code. But back to the specific question that you're asking in a moment, a bit like we were saying, hey, we're going to have to take our customers on a journey. I think within our company, we've also been on a journey, a very quick journey. It's only been the last 12 months. And I would say we're definitely experimental, moving on to embedded. And the reason I say why embedded is because it's become a running joke in the company that every time a problem comes up, the answer is maybe AI will solve it. But actually that reflects the mindset of the people in our business about, hey, can we use AI to think about this in a completely different way? So I actually, a little bit proud when we do say that. And I think part of that has been, how do you overcome fear and creating champions? How do you overcome a lack of understanding through communication and giving people sandboxes? And how do you overcome I call it like the lack of integration, right? You actually need technology to enable this. And one of the things we do to actually create 2 tracks in FrankieOne. One where you can get the engineers involved, you get given a technical partner to help you make your idea get evolved. But the other one is to get off-the-shelf tools that allow people to use and create agentic workflows without needing an engineer to get involved. And actually what we're seeing is that people are just coming up with use cases that they applied obviously in a framework and secure space. And some of those have actually been picked up and transferred to the other stream as things like, hey, this has legs. Let's create something Frankie specific around this and take it to the next level.
Actually, I'm going to riff on that one a little bit. There's a recent study, McKinsey study from July, that talks about generative AI adoption in banking. And one of the things I was surprised about, it was more than half, 52% of banks in North America were adopting LLM-based capability and agentic capability and looking at it in discrete domains. The interesting thing was 70% of them would go to partners. They're not trying to build all the agentic themselves. They're going to learn from practices. And so to your point about being experimental and being on the front, that's what I think a good partner can be, is if you're working with a bank or you're working with a technology provider, if you can build that partnership, you all learn quickly, right? And then you can understand how to safely do some of these things. So you talk about your internal teams, it is all still partnership and collaboration driving that. It's hugely exciting.
I'm conscious that I want to give the room some question time, so I have one last question for you all. What does 6, 9, and 12 months from now look like in relation to agentic AI? And Jito, I might start with you.
So, as we all know, technology is rapidly growing, so I don't want to predict where AI is going to be. I mean, looking at last 12 months, I was here at Intersekt, everyone was excited about AI, but the topic was about the hallucination of AI. I think people are a lot more comfortable with AI today. However, in 12 months' time, I think where we would see and we would need to see is the regulators ramping up their work and what more guardrails can be brought on board, not just internally but externally as well, so that there's more trust built using AI or agentic models internally.
Thank you. Warren?
Yeah, I actually don't think it's the technology that's the limiting factor. That is just an exponential curve, but it's actually our adoption and ability from a regulatory point of view or with our customers to be able to adopt that. But I do have confidence that, and the people here, the number of times people are now engaging with AI, even the big banks, more than 50% are using it, that, hey, if you get them used on those vertical use cases, then we can actually build up that knowledge and explainability and trust to then actually have those end-to-end workflows, agents talking to agents, that will just simplify people's roles.
Yeah, so I'll talk about the Oracle share price. No, I won't. We're going to see a ramp up, and I think we're also going to see a rationalisation of some of the thinking and approaches, and we're going to see the introduction of new technology. It's going to, I couldn't predict we'd be here 6 months ago, and so I'm kind of nervous about going out 5 years. But I think it is probably the most exciting time in a technology enablement that we've ever seen. And so for us to be able to bring that to market safely and in a way that is still breeds that trust, I think that's the challenge. I think it is a human challenge that we're facing into. We've got an aging population. We've also got people that are digital natives. We will see really quite a span of adoption, I think, and I think it's hugely exciting.
Well, I personally can't wait for my AI agent decisions to make my adult life decisions. So is there anyone in the room with a question for our wonderful panellists? Put your hand up. There are some roving mics. We've got one over here.
We've spoken about agentic AI as replacing like discrete roles as defined by existing workforces. Is that a necessary step on a longer term pathway where we can start breaking down those boundaries, or is it something that we should be released from in the short term?
I'll jump in first. So I actually just recently spoke at a law conference, and the simplest way to understand it would be like how a lawyer would. The broader the role of the agent, the broader the risk it carries within the organisation. So what you want to do is you do want to take some gradual steps towards that journey. I think even as an organisation to learn how to manage and monitor and engage is valuable. But I do see it, to your kind of implied question, it is a step towards a goal of having much broader agents, having broader responsibilities in a particular workflow or operation.
Does anyone else have anything to add on that? Warren?
No, I only to agree with Gordon. As I said, I think there are some baby steps that organisations need to go through first before you think about where roles evolve into. But I do see it unlocking people to work on higher value-added tasks. Some of the manual things that I see in compliance today is not actually what people want to be spending their time on.
I also did read this week in the AFR that maybe we'll get a 4-day working week thanks to AI, but we can hope, right? There's a question over here.
Thanks, you've been pretty cool. Quick one, you've all mentioned on how easy it is to kind of get this stuff going and whatnot, and especially around the individual roles, taking a slice of the process and making one person's job easier. How do you actually stay relevant? Like you basically said, hey, all these big banks, they could replace this pretty easily. I just got to get my compliance person to replace their role and augment themselves, basically. So how do you stay ahead of the curve, given the simplicity of rolling this stuff out? And it is becoming easier with the, Oracle building all these tools and whatever else internally on their cloud platforms. Plus, they've got all those salespeople.
I can start that. I think it actually comes down to a shift in skills, right? Take the example I was talking about before from an engineering perspective. Programming in and of itself is going to become less relevant as a skill, but technological literacy is going to become even more important. Who's going to sit down, understand how these agents work, put them together? That's what I was saying, is going from programming to planning. People are going to take, instead of multiple teams working on one epic, it's easier and faster and actually more efficient to have one person own an entire epic of technological development. And so take that, how do you shift from programming to planning and then apply it across to all the roles? In fact, when I think about our hiring at FrankieOne, even for our customer teams, questions I ask is what exposure do you have to AI? And we're seeing that in job advertisements generally, or I'm hearing that actually AI skills, even though it's only been nascent, is what people want, because they're expecting is like, how can you use these tools to augment your job today, not do the job that was yesterday?
I'll just add from the customers we talk to, yes, a large financial institution can afford to buy great data platforms and great AI platforms, but it doesn't mean they've necessarily seen as many of the controls that you may be invested in as an organisation. We find that a lot, that they don't necessarily understand how to make those things move smoothly through a big bank. I'm not a diplomat, I can't find the right words, but so simplifying some of the things so that they can see time to value. This McKinsey story was just, or paper, which you should search up, basically said that the return on investment wasn't what people were chasing. They were chasing efficiency for their teams to give them the time back to be intellectually curious and inquisitive. And I think where I'm seeing is we can help with that process for what we understand, and as long as we keep our boundary with other teams within the bank, that's kind of helpful for them.
We are out of time, so can you please join me in thanking our wonderful panellists for their engaging in the intellectual conversation. I am pretty sure it's lunchtime, but I'll hand you back to the MC. Thank you, everyone.